If we were smart, we would have been in bed asleep, since it was almost tomorrow. The three of us just sat by the fire pit, shivering, passing a pint of whiskey. Andy's voice rose above the sound of the waves lapping up against the boats and the boats knocking up against the dock of the marina. I had to be here at 5:30 in the fucking morning to haul the boats out for the morning load of fishermen who were still asleep for sure. But the stars were out and there was still wood to burn and whiskey to drink. Jeff could sleep in. Sunday was his day off. This was the last of the weekend money for me. Fishing season closes at Halloween, but the boss would lay us off soon. Andy was all wound up, talking fast like he did, telling me and Jeff everything we already knew about fish, boats, the lake, how to handle the tourists to get the best tips. He passed this huge doobie to me, which I waved off. The skunky smoke still floated my way. I had had just about enough of Andy's bullshit. I grew up here. I got quarters carrying tourist bags into the hotel when I was 10. Plus, I knew where the fish were. He didn't. But boss hired Andy as a favor to someone to be the assistant manager. He got the best money and free rent at the cozy trailer out back. Slick. Maybe boss took him in like a rescue dog. Andy was always flipping between his motor mouth, got it all in control, and a kind of heavy metal despair. I could handle him up, but down, no. Plus, he was a grown up. I mean, he was young, but like 30 or something. You could tell by the beer belly and the balding under his Fenwick ball cap. Maybe he was sent here for a geographical cure. You know, maybe if you move, everything will be all right. It's not you, it's them. My mother was at home worrying about me. I could just feel her knitting away with the TV on for noise, worrying about nothing. After a while, I knew I would get cold and not want to walk all the way back down to my house. If I texted her, she would be awake. She would put her Carhartt coat on over her pajamas, stick her feet in her old Sorels, and come and get me. She would be too tired to argue or complain. I'd be too fucked up to talk. We would ride in silent darkness, watching for deer to jump into the car's headlights. But that night, she came early, just showed up and sat down. She'd been at Donna's and she was still awake, no pajamas. That was the night Andy pulled out the 40 caliber pistol in front of her as we sat around in a circle at the fire pit. The gun was slick. It was a Springfield XD-40. The barrel was soft, purple black, and the golden lights flickering from the fire disappeared in the darkness of the barrel. Andy pulled out the clip and pulled open the slide to make sure there was nothing in the chamber as we all watched. Mom straightened up and pulled her coat around her. Each of us guys held it, balancing the weight, sighting down the barrel. My hand closed on it like it was mine. Even without the magazine, the muzzle tipped down, and I had to think to hold the weight of the thing tipped up. When I sighted down the barrel, I pointed at a star over the lake. The clip was heavy too. The bullets were huge, shiny copper cylinders in that clip. The 40 almost looked like a cartoon, a drawing of a gun, not a real thing. I wished I'd owned that instead of the 22 my dad left me. Yeah, my uncle gave me this because I needed to protect the property. Andy winked at my mom. Bears. The rest of us knew you didn't need to shoot the damn bears, but Andy was no local. My mom's pretty good at handling a gun, but Andy didn't know that. Her eyes got wide at his bragging, but she didn't say much about the gun as we all sat by the fire pit. She just walked away after a little bit so we could smoke one more joint and I could say my goodbyes. She was in the car listening to the radio when I got in. Are you sure he's going to be all right? Mom asked. That night was just another night. I thought she worried for nothing, and I blew her off. What do you mean? Andy's cool. I said this, although I had been thinking the same thing. He was unknown, a new friend. It's not like we grew up together. Well, he seems pretty drunk to be playing with a gun. No, Mom, just mind your own business. He's cool. I'd been talking to her like that since Dad died, kind of snotty, but she pissed me off. She was always on me about something. We rode home with just the radio on. I was happy to see Mom out. She spent too much time at home in the little cabin lately, just work and home. We'd been through a whole 2 years, 2 winters since Dad died, and it was about time she got out. Before, Mom was always busy, always volunteering in our little town, talking to everyone and worrying about the old folks. Everyone she served breakfast to on her shift at the hot pot thought she was their best friend. Mom knew everyone's children and where they lived and how many grandchildren they had. My mom remembered that along with exactly which jelly they wanted with their toast. That's why she was such a good waitress. Dad had worked for the road maintenance crew. Back then, I was just a happy little kid. I remember the day they came to the door and told us. Mom fell on her knees, just crumpled up. The road crew driver came up to the door with the highway patrol officer. The officer said, all the stuff, what happened? Dad had been working late to get overtime and it was dark. A car blasted through the slow zone and either swerved or Dad stepped out. He died on impact, the officer said. The lawyer said maybe one day I would get some money to go to college, but the courts were slow and the insurance companies slower. The road crew helped us out for a while, but we got by, Mom and me. The morning after the fire pit night, when Mom dropped me off at the marina, the store door was still locked. Hey man, seen Andy? He had the keys, and I can't bust the boats out because the keys are in the store. George came up to me hollering. He liked his routine, old George. He was about 100 and had been at the marina through 4 bosses. The boss was never around, but I knew he was up at the hot pot having breakfast. I called Mom on my cell phone and told her we needed the keys. Boss blasted up about 5 minutes later in his shiny new Jeep. What the hell? Can't you guys figure this out? That's why I pay Andy to sleep on the property. You go get the keys, he hollered. George shrugged like it wasn't up to him. Boss, he's asleep, and he was up late, and you know he can be. I tried to explain, but I could see the tourists beginning to pull into the parking lot and unload their fishing tackle from their SUVs. I gave up and walked towards the back of the marina. Go over there and wake his ass up, Boss roared after me and turned to smile and greet the fisherman. The trailer was a little 20-something odd foot stuck behind the garage where George fixed the motors and patched the boats. The grass was high around it, except at the entrance. Beside the stairs, there was a lawn chair with a silver ashtray stand, a dirty cooler, and a pile of whiskey bottles. All the faded orange curtains were closed tight. I climbed the stairs and pounded on the door. Andy, Andy, we need the keys. No answer. Andy, I'm catching hell out here from boss. Throw me the keys, man. No answer. I pulled on the handle and it turned. I opened it a crack and hollered again. Andy! Dumbass was probably passed out still. I stepped in and had to blink before I could make anything out. The first thing to hit me was the smell and the heat. The space heater was humming. Garbage and a bitter metal smell. The hair rose on the back of my neck and my knees began to tremble. In the orange light, I could just see a lump in the bed. and what looked like paint splattered all over the headboard. I didn't know why, but I stepped in. Andy's foot was sticking out of the covers. I touched it and shook it a little. No response. The foot was ice cold. No, 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 I said as I backed up and stumbled down the stairs. Outside, I threw up in the weeds. I heard George walking around the garage. Hey, I held my hand up to stop him. Go back. I got this. He turned, grumbling, marched back around the corner of the garage. No way did I want to have to deal with George. After a minute, I opened the door again and found Andy's pants on the chair. I slipped the keys out of the pocket. Outside with the door closed, I threw up again. I hoped that was over. I wiped my mouth and my eyes, and taking a big breath, I went back to the store. Boss was still talking to impress the fishermen, pointing out the good spots for fish. I opened the store and waited until all the fishermen went in. While they were fingering the lures and lining up for the bathroom, old George made coffee. I pulled Boss aside. I have to say, Boss did well. His smile did not change when I told him. He kept waving at the fishermen and nodding like everything was just fine. Only his eyes changed. Andy's dead. I held his arm, slipped him the keys, and whispered, I think it was the gun. Call the sheriff, Boss whispered, pulling me so close I smelled his coffee breath. Wait at the trailer and don't let anybody in. So I did all that. I spent the whole day standing in the sun, feeling nauseated, dealing with the sheriff and the county medical examiner. I had to repeat the story and write a statement and fend off tourists and children all day. When I finally got to the pier, I saw that Boss had called in Ben, who was part-time when we were busy. Ben was making a mess of putting the boats up and the tackle up, so I stepped in. See, turn the ropes like this so you can flip them off when the boats go out in the morning. The rope was cool, wet, and solid in my hand. The rhythm of pull the line, secure the rope, turn the winch, spray the boat clean settled me. My mind let loose and I stared at the flickering sunlight on the lake as I moved back and forth. Bending over hurt my back after a while, and I straightened up and took a deep breath. Few old fishermen were still cleaning fish. Even fish guts smelled good at this point. The water sparkled and the breeze made me feel clean. Oh boy, some guy caught a 5-pounder, Ben said. Hey, where's Andy? I want to show him this lure. Never mind, I said. I'll tell you later. Of course, everyone in town knew in 10 minutes. When my shift was over, Mom came to get me and didn't wait for my call. When we got home, I went to my room without a word. She made my favorite dinner that night, spaghetti. I couldn't eat a forkful. I just went back to bed. I wondered what would have changed if anyone had listened to Mom or to Annie or to no, but nobody heard anybody. I certainly didn't. The next day, Boss handed me a bunch of garbage bags, a new plastic garbage can, and a shovel. Get Ben to help you clean out the trailer. No, I said. He was my friend. I'll do it. Boss would make me anyway. Time to man up.